luxury of coaching, doing an interview with Coach from Del Valley, Coach Todd Patman. Now, Coach Earven Flowers, head coach for the Taylor Ducks. Uh, is this your first playoff appearance as a head coach?
That's our second. We made it to the playoffs last year against Bernie, and we
That's right.
didn't get past first round last year, but we played a pretty tough game versus guys.
And so, and Taylor goes, you get a guy like you who's played at the next level. We were talking about Rich Brooks, who was one of the head coaches there. Talk to me about some of the things that your head coach has taught you at Kentucky that you instill in your coaching pattern and that you can bring from that upper level down to the high school level.
One of the things they kind of taught me just about just hard work, man. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, hard work. You know, that's going to be something that is going to be transition to any part of your life,
Right.
you know, any part of the game.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the biggest things he really instilled in us is working hard, because at the end of the day, you know, if you work hard, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Absolutely.
And that's just the honest truth.
Yeah.
So, you know, we try to instill that with our kids. We have a pretty tough off season. And now that off season, we're starting to pay dividends in terms of how our season turned around.
Man, and I've always lived by this saying: if you work without looking at the clock, you can spend without looking at your account.
So, I don't know about that, but yeah,
I'm just saying, like,
but I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you put in that work, like, you don't have to worry so much about the little things.
Right.
You know, all of that's going to come together. And you and Coach Button, both Division I athletes, which y'all have brought here to Taylor, has been phenomenal. It was a little rough start, and then district came, and we're talking about a 4-1 team. 4-1, right?
5-1. As far as district,
yeah, district.
4-1.
4-1 in district with a tough loss, but y'all played really good against LBJ, who is number 2 in the state, or number 3.
Or number 2. They were number 2 in some polls, so yeah.
And so y'all played tough opponents, and y'all have came out, and now you're the number 2 seed in this district, going against Somerset. What's the game plan against a really good team like Somerset?
You know, I think we played them in 2017. You know, that's the last time we won district at Taylor.
Okay.
And they lost. We lost to Somerset in overtime.
Okay.
And Somerset is known for being a tough team. You know, in terms of playing hard, playing to the whistle.
Right.
Kind of undersized kids,
Yes,
but
sir.
they find a way to make it happen. Pretty decent sized linemen. So honestly, you know, they're kind of similar to us in our makeup and what we instill in our kids. So it's going to be a fun game. You know, we got to make sure we control the game from an offensive standpoint and get those stops on defense. You know, last week in the Austin Travis game, you know, we struggled a little bit with the tackling aspect of it. We played with some guys who were new starters because we had some guys who were out with illnesses. You know, so we came in and we found a way to get a win, and that's the coolest part about last week. Is we found a way to get a win, and usually those things don't fall in our favor.
Right.
So now it's a little bit different where people kind of respect what we do, and now it's not looking at us like an underdog all the time.
Right.
And our kids find a way to win. You know,
yeah,
so that's something that's cool and that's positive, and that's something moving forward into this playoff game versus Somerset that we kind of have, you know, in our pocket. You know, we know how to win a close game.
Right.
Obviously, they do know how to win a close game as well. But it's going to be, you know, just a hard-working team versus another hard-working team. And whoever comes out on top, comes out on top.
Right. In the short amount of time that we've talked just this evening, and thank you for this man coming out on his Sunday evening. I know you've been putting in the work, getting prepared for the playoff game, taking time to give us and the fans some insight. You talked about some of the similarities between the two teams. It's going to be 2 Rams, then it seems like. What is the biggest similarity between the two programs?
Defensively, we run kind of a similar type of defense. You know, we dibble and dabble in some 10-1 stuff, play a lot of man-to-man, put some pressure on the quarterback. They do the same thing.
Okay.
So, you know, thankfully our offense is used to us doing that. So, you know, we'll kind of be used to that going into the game, because if you haven't seen it before, it's pretty fast. It's pretty intense. And, you know, so that's one of the bigger similarities, just from an offensive standpoint. They have a little size on the line. We're kind of similar. Quarterback is really athletic. You know, we're more throwing the ball down the field. You know, I think from our receiver standpoint, you know, we're probably a little bit more athletic from the receiver standpoint. And, you know, they're pretty solid back. You know, we definitely had Tutu Fisher. He's a, you know, good back. And, you know, also we have Kayvon Godwin. So, you know, we can run the ball as well. So we really match up, you know, good versus each other. So it's going to be a fun game.
You talk about your receivers, and Jamarcus Seawood, the senior wide receiver, has really lit it up these last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you had a freshman in Damon Calico who's been tearing it up. He was tearing it up in the preseason and still been doing great. How's their relationship, and how has Seawood been able to kind of like put Calico under his wing and guide him, or and what do they do? Do they jive well together?
Initially, that's what was the whole plan.
Yeah,
The offense. You've been here for a while, help out Calico and bring him along, and he did that in the beginning. And those kids, it's next man up. Whoever chance is to make a play, that's what they do.
Right.
And Seawood has carried the load. Toward the middle of the season, and Calico making plays here toward the end.
Yep.
Definitely last week, saved us with some amazing plays. So I'm excited about how we have two guys who can stretch the field on the outside, and they complement our running game. We ran the ball pretty well. I think Tutu had the ball for rushed it for about 22 times for 145. So we controlled the game, man. So that's something that I'm big on. If you can control the game and take your shots and make your shots count when you go down the field, that's pretty good for our defense. If we can get off the field, get a couple of stops, we can get ahead and we can kind of, run that clock out and manage the game.
And Tutu had his second 200-yard game this season. His first one was as a sophomore against Rockdale. Then I thought he would do it against New Tech. The week after, he goes for like two something. I forget what it was. And so twice that young man has put for over 200 yards. You talked a lot about your defense too and how they've matched up. I've been able to get familiar with Caddy Maravilla and Kezion Simeon. And I know Simeon was coming in as a sophomore, now in his junior role. How have those two gentlemen helped lead your defense?
Just my opinion, Caddy is probably one of the better players on our team.
Yeah.
It's hard to block him, does a good job getting off the ball, low center of gravity, and he's just disrupt. He's kind of a running back type of athlete in his body, man, and he gives offensive linemen trouble. So he does a good job of that and definitely being physical. I think he had 10 tackles last week. Did an excellent job of getting up on a lot of blocks and making some plays. And Simeon, man, he's come a long way. He was a lineman for us last year, and we seen him during the off season. Like, man, he just has a knack for the ball, so we move him back to the linebacker position, man. And he's done a good job for it. We had Matt Rangel, who was the other inside linebacker. He ended up having some issues with his knee. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was in the hospital for a little bit. And we finally got that infection cleared up. And, he stepped up in the second half for this past game because we wasn't scheduled to play him. We weren't going to play him, but we had so many injuries. And he stepped up in the second half, man, and just went out there on just a few days practice and made some things happen. So we have a lot of guys on our defense, from Steven Rogers. He's a transfer in from Granger, did a heck of a job. Ethan Flagg does a good job for us at corners. Vega, he's been kind of a mainstay at our safety. So, we have some guys who can make some plays. And, I forgot about, Emmanuel Coleman. He's been playing defensive line for us for a while. So we have some veteran guys out there. We've had some good games defensively. Wasn't the best game last week defensively, but I think we kind of, got things on track now when we get everybody back and we'll be ready to roll for the playoffs.
Man, well, that's it, man. That's all I really have. You gave me everything about Somerset. You taught me everything about your team this year. Is there anything else you would like to leave a message with the Central Texas football fans, Heard It Here First fans, and your Taylor Duck fans?
Oh man, just stay with us. We're trying to build this thing, and we're starting in the right direction. Last year with the playoffs, back with the playoffs again. The next step is to win a game and be playing during Thanksgiving.
Absolutely,
that's our main goal. That's one of our goals for this year. We want to be playing during Thanksgiving. So we're going to keep pushing towards that. We're going to get the ball rolling, and we're going to turn this program to something that everybody can be proud of.
Man, and y'all have done a phenomenal job, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys, actually, I will be calling this game this week for NFHS Network. It will be starting at 7 o'clock.
7:30.
All right.